Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of CIOtv. I'm Jennifer Hopper with AuditMax and I'm joined today by Pete Gibson. How you doing today, Pete?
Fine, yourself?
Great, great.
Excuse me.
Thanks for joining us on the show. Yeah, it's that lingering cough. It doesn't seem to go away for anyone. So Pete, if you would, just to get started, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just telling our audience a little bit about you and what you're doing right now.
Okay. So I'm Pete Gibson. I am, I guess for lack of a better term, a turnaround CIO. I go into situations where the IT team may not be doing well, the company wants to get better value out of IT, or there's a major event, merger acquisition, transactional system change out, things like that, where they need strong IT leadership. So I normally go into those type of situations.
That's very interesting. I'm sure you've uncovered some things that you'd rather not have at some point.
Well, yeah, I've been very fortunate. I was guided by some good people early in my career that got some groundings that kind of set me up for a great career in technology. So I've been really, really fortunate in what I've been able to go do and the organizations and what we've been able to accomplish.
That's amazing. What got you into technology?
You know, it's an accident. I went to school at a liberal arts. I went to school at a liberal arts school in North Carolina. Got out of there and then did a couple of years in a not-for-profit, and then I joined the Navy. And I thought, you know, degree in human relations, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Navy leadership, I'm going to get an MBA. But for the first time in my life, I was challenged when I was in the Navy. And when I joined the Navy, they said, we're going to make you an electronic warfare officer. And so I was studying RF propagation, networks, and how to defeat the Soviet Navy at that time, the electromagnetic spectrum. I fleeted on up through various jobs in the Navy because I was enjoying it, and it was hard work, but I was just growing a lot as an individual. And then they said, hey, great career. We got this place up in Dahlgren, Virginia, and we want you there. And the Navy was really kind of detailing. So I ended up going to Dahlgren, Virginia. I show up. And they say, you're over in this building, and it's a national lab, but the buildings are nondescript and so forth. And then I walk in the door, and I was responsible for the U.S. Navy's Tomahawk cruise missile weapons control system, and I was also responsible for the UAV program. And in that, because I was a naval officer, and in there I walked in, I had 350 civil servants working for me, some of the brightest people in the country, and I learned so much by doing that position. And I learned how to run a technology organization. I learned how to develop high reliable code. I learned how to develop high reliable systems, and then all the factors to go do that, not just tests, but software quality assurance, system engineering, detailed programmatics, and so forth. And that set me up for a great career in the commercial sector when I left there. And so that set me up for IBM, CIO at Alamo National Car Rental, CTO at Wyndham Hotel Group. I went to Bridge Street. I ran an IT outsourcing company in Shanghai, and we built, it's like all outsourcing companies, we have our marquee accounts. Ours was Red Prairie, now Blue Yonder. We built and ran Walmart.com for Walmart, and the list goes on. And I just got done turning around Friendlies and Johnny Rockets and helping the private equity group get that sold too by running the technology section for the company.
That's quite a resume, I have to say.
I'm very fortunate. It's good people, which I think in technology there are a lot of good people, and good solid leadership. And the other skill that I learned kind of early was, listening. You learn so much just by listening, and so
you learn, and you also gain a lot of respect by doing that as well. I found.
Well, it is. And every one of the situations was different. So, Alex, I've done 3 bankruptcies. Alamo National was a bankruptcy. 9/11. We had 140,000 cars all over the place. Wyndham couldn't get an application out the door. Every one of them is different. But the one thing that you need is leadership and an understanding, going in and talking to your stakeholders, talking to the people, figuring out where the different issues and problems are, and then laying out a strategy for how you kind of get your way out of it. And there's a book, it's a Harvard Business School book that I take quite a bit, which is the first 30, 60, 90 days. And the whole premise of that book is when you show up in an organization, you are a deficit. You know nothing, you're not adding value. So how do you develop a plan to add value real quickly? How do you bridge the chasm from a deficit to value add? And you create this learning plan, which is basically you're talking to different people and asking about your organization and learning about the business and finding the quick wins. And then you get the quick wins, and then that gives you a little breathing room to start laying in your strategy to improve the organization. And then when you do that, it's not about the technology. I mean, I had a CEO, unfortunately he passed away a couple of months ago, but he said, Pete, the reason you got a seat at the executive table is to generate revenue. He said, running technology is important, but you need to generate revenue. And so as CIO, you're always focused on running technology effectively, high reliability, great services for the organization, but you always got to know what you're doing is how is it going to improve the organization. And you got to bring those skills to the table. And when you do, you take technology from a commodity play to a strategy play. And you don't know how many people, you ask them, how are you going to do transformation, and how are you going to go do this, and so forth. And I'll tell you, they're brain dead. They don't really have a clue. You peel the onion back, ask the same question 3 times, and you're going to learn, but they don't really know what they're doing. They don't have a plan. They don't know how am I going to digitally transform this organization, which is a big buzzword. How am I going to digitally transform the organization? And we all kind of know you don't have all the capital in the world. You don't have all the assets in the world. But how are you going to add value quickly?
That makes sense. And it's amazing too how the IT organization has become the entire company now, because everything is run by IT and everything funnels through there. There's some technology in some way, so it touches every aspect of the companies that you're speaking about.
No, you're spot on. And that's how I know that normally I go into situations where it's kind of a prickly IT team in the back corner somewhere, and no one, and all they can ever say is, I don't have enough resources, I don't have time, can't go do that. And you kind of always know that when you bridge from the commodity play or that back corner to being a strategic play, when there's a new initiative in the organization, you're probably the second phone call. Say, we need IT support for this new initiative. And let me give you some real life tangible examples of this. So at Friendly's and Johnny Rockets, small New England restaurant chain that everyone loves and is really near and dear, but everyone kind of knows it's on hard times. Before the pandemic, there was delivery, and it hadn't really caught on in the restaurant industry, but coming from the hotel industry, we said, we got to go do this. And of course, we get 20% of the revenue, and how do you go handle it and so forth. So we got one in place, and then I said we're going to put a second in place, and then we're going to change how we price from pricing, which is cost of goods plus 40%, to yielding, which is taking prices up and down and so forth based on demand. And we're going to move into that paradigm shift. And then next thing you know, this brand that hasn't made money in years is all of a sudden making money.
Reinvented.
Yeah, I still needed a lot of help. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't completely safe, but still needed help. But for the first time in years, we were profitable. Then it was the head of operations and the CEO. They reached across the table and they kind of go, "You know why we're profitable?" I go, "No, not really." And they kind of go, "Because of IT." And this was the prickly team that, no one, good people didn't have good leadership. Kind of the prickly team. And they said it's because of IT. And so then we had to jump that chasm from running servers and commodity play to being a strategic asset.
Right.
And it just so happened that 9/11 hit, or not 9/11, but COVID hit. And so just like all organizations, we shuttered the majority of the staff, but we were able to keep the restaurant open because we had a bagger and a cook, and we had a great off-premise capability. We went down 65% in revenue, which a lot of companies did during that time frame. But by the summer, we were only down 35%, and by the fall, we were only down 10% year over year, which allowed the private equity owner to sell the company in the pandemic year. So, and to your point, and you hit it right on it, the funnest place to be in business right now, in my mind, and I'm biased, is technology. And I say this, and nothing new is coming out of accounting. Supply chain is supply chain. It keeps on trying to get tighter. The accounting guys still doing the same thing. So, but if it's ever want to improve a business or save money or generate revenue, I would tell you it's coming through technology, and there is a component to be done, to be worked with on it.
Yeah, it's nice to hear too with the projects that you've done that you actually got the respect to, because that's been something that's been lacking with the IT industry. IT was always seen as kind of not being the easiest to work with, but I think that's changed, and there's a lot more respect for IT and IT leadership now than there was 15 years ago, for sure.
50% of what an IT organization does is service. And so, like, if someone is calling your service desk, someone is interfacing with you on a project, whatever, you've got to have a strong service presence. If you don't, it's going to be a kiss of death. And I go into these organizations, and I call it the IT black hole. Jennifer calls, says I got a problem, and it goes into the ticketing system, never to see the light of day again. Well, there's a reason that Jennifer called, right? Because she has issues and problems. And yes, I'm a firm believer that 50% of the calls to a service desk are user errors, but you still called and said you needed help.
Right.
Okay, and it's up to us as an organization to go do that. I was in one organization run by an outsourcing, and it just was not managed well. And so they would start out, say, a CIV2 ticket, couldn't solve them all, so they'd turn them into CIV3 tickets. And they couldn't solve all the CIV3 tickets over a period of time, they turned them into CIV4. Couldn't never get to the CIV4, so what do? We just automatically closed them. And so for you as a customer to call, why call IT? They never get the job done, right?
Yep.
And that's just, in this day and age, that is terrible. And
right.
IT leaders need to put your foot down. Yes, you got to deliver systems, you got to keep the systems going, but your constituency needs service. So let's figure out how we can go do service and do it well. And there are a lot of great methodologies, ITIL and so forth on that side of the house. But you got to implement it, put the management plan in place, the metrics, the KPIs, and then when you're giving strong service to your customers, they go, wow. And they call you.
They pay attention, that's for sure.
They do.
Absolutely. Well, Pete, I don't want to cut you off, but it's been fantastic to have you on the show. Love to have you back again at some point and hear how things are going, but it was great having you and really appreciate you being here today.